All right, joining me right now to discuss, a key member of the Senate, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Senator, thanks for coming in.
Glad to be with you.
So with this news, well, a lot of news, let's start with this. With John McCain now an official yes, are you prepared to say that the votes are there and this thing is cooked?
It is almost ready to take out of the oven. Yeah, we're going to get there. It's just a matter of how we get there. It's not if we get there, it's just how we get there. We're going to get a pass. We're going to pass this tax cut bill this week.
I mean, Ron Johnson has been one of the people on the fence, and you've been working with him. You two are now pushing for a change that would increase one of these key things, a credit for pass-through entities. You want to see the credit be higher. That'd get Ron Johnson on board. Do you have any indication that the leaders are on board with that, though?
I don't know, but I know this, that C corporations can deduct state and local taxes. Individuals can't, and pass-through entities cannot. So I want to put the C corporations who get a tax cut from 35 to 20, that they put in the same boat as everybody else and take that money that would have gone to C corporations in terms of deducting their state and local taxes and helping pass-through entities with a higher deduction. I'm on that amendment with Ron Johnson. I think that's good policy. Whether or not we get it passed today, I think eventually we'll get that done, I hope.
Even if it's not part of the bill, though, you're a yes on this.
I'm a yes, but I'm trying to make the bill as good as possible. And I think taking this away from corporations, which nobody else gets, just makes good policy to me.
Well, let me ask you about the other big news that's coming out of the White House, out of the administration right now, the fact that they're now contemplating a scenario. There's a plan in the works to replace Secretary of State Rex Tillerson with CIA Director Mike Pompeo, and then the leading candidate to replace Mike Pompeo would be your fellow Senator Tom Cotton over at the CIA. Would you support all those moves?
If that's what the president wants. I had breakfast yesterday with Secretary Tillerson, had a great meeting about his effort to reorganize the State Department. A lot of what he's doing has been misrepresented. He needs to push back, He needs to push back about what he's doing, how he's doing it, and why he's doing it. But I don't know. I don't know the palace intrigue at the White House. If the president wants to change Secretary of State, that's his power to do so. Pompeo would be a good pick. Tom Cotton's a very capable man. He's a national security expert as far as I'm concerned. So we'll see what happens. But I don't have any knowledge of what you're saying other than reading it in the paper.
Absolutely. But when it comes to it, though, has Rex Tillerson done a bad job, Senator?
I think he hasn't been forceful enough in explaining what he's trying to do. What he did is he asked the people in the State Department, how can I make your job better? Can we do more with less? Where's duplication? How can we eradicate it? What are the hurdles to you getting your job done? He's asked really good questions of how the State Department operates. He needs to explain to the public what he's doing. There's only 10 people less in the State Department this year than there was last year. There are a lot of people in London that probably some of them should be out in the field. When you go on a one-year tour, it probably should be 2 if you're a linguistic expert, so you can get the most bang for the taxpayer buck. He's doing some things that make sense, but I don't think he's done a very good job of explaining what he's doing.
But do you think he should go? Do you think he hasn't explained himself enough that he should be out?
I have no reason to want to replace Secretary Tillerson. I enjoy working with him. I think he's been loyal to the president. I think he's a smart guy. But that's up to the president of the United States. The Secretary of State's main job is to give the president of the United States good, sound advice and explain the president to the world. The Secretary of State's job is try to explain the president to the world. And, you know, I know he's doing the best he can.
Well, and one of those areas where the Secretary of State is so important and key is the area of North Korea and the nuclear threat from North Korea right now. You offered a pretty dire warning earlier this week that the United States is headed to war if things don't change with North Korea. Senator, what is next here?
Well, if they continue to test missiles and perfect their missile technology so it can deliver a nuclear weapon to the United States, they would have crossed a red line that President Trump drew. Whether he should have drawn this red line or not, he did. He told the North Koreans and the Chinese, I'll never allow you to build an ICBM with a nuclear weapon on top to hit America. I'm not going to contain the threat. I'm going to prevent the threat from occurring. So this new test puts them closer to being able to hit America with a nuclear weapon. We're headed toward a preemptive war with North Korea if things don't change. China provides almost all the oil to the North Korean economy. If China denied oil to the North Korean economy tomorrow in return for their change in behavior, they could get it. So clearly China doesn't believe Trump is serious about a military engagement as a last resort. Clearly, North Korea is not listening to China. Something's got to change or we're going to have a conflict to protect the American homeland. And if there's going to be a war, it's going to be over there, not here.
Well, so then what could the change be? I mean, do you think it has to be imminent?
I think the change is to start talking with North Korea. The Chinese share the same goal as President Trump. No nuclear weapons in North Korea or South Korea. The Chinese, if they wanted to, could change behavior in North Korea tomorrow. They own their economy. There would be no nuclear North Korea without Chinese help. So President Trump is right to look to China to solve this problem. And he's telling the Chinese, don't miscalculate where I'm coming from. If I have to pick between homeland security and regional stability, I'm picking the American homeland. You see all these graphs about how the North Korean missile program can reach every city in America?
Yeah.
I want China to have a graph of what America can do in their backyard in North Korea.
Well, how does he show that then?
I think you will be seeing pretty soon some escalation of military capability. I think the president and his administration are going to begin to build up American capability to deal with the North Korean threat to our homeland. We're not trying to spread democracy to North Korea. We're not looking for regime change. We're not trying to unify South Korea and North Korea. We're trying to prevent the North Koreans from hitting America with a nuclear-tipped missile. And if it takes military action to do so, we're going to start preparing for that day. And I think you're going to see a ramp up in military capability.
And are you on board with a ramp up in military capability over there?
I am like 100% on board with the idea that if it takes military force to protect America from a crazy man having a nuclear weapon that can hit our homeland, so be it. I don't want a war with North Korea. It would be devastating to South Korea. It would be devastating to the region.
And you don't think that ratchets it up?
I think it makes it real to the Chinese. We're running out of options here. For 25 years, we've been begging the Chinese to help us with North Korea. We've been cutting off food. We've been giving them food. We've been sanctioning them. We've been relieving sanctions, and everything we do doesn't work. The North Koreans believe, in spite of all these sanctions, the best bet for them is to get a nuclear weapon and a missile to hit America. Donald Trump has said, rightly so, we're not going to live that way as Americans. I'm not going to let my country live under the threat of a nuclear attack from North Korea. And if I have to go to war to prevent it, I will. And if the Chinese want to help us, they need to do it quickly, and if there's going to be a war, it's going to be in China's backyard.
So do you know what that escalation will look like, though?
Just stay tuned.
I think we all will have to, and I think everyone over there is definitely listening now, Senator. Let me keep going.
That's a step forward if they are.
Well, we will see. Nothing you're going to announce here at the moment, I assume.
Good assumption.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Let me move on to something else that is all over the place and has become something of an international incident. The president pushing out these unverified anti-Muslim videos on Twitter. Yesterday, when you were asked about it, you called it particularly inappropriate. Someone else who clearly agrees with you is now the British Prime Minister, who today spoke out against President Trump on this very issue. The British Prime Minister, who is in Jordan, speaking out against this. Yeah. Is the president doing harm with this?
Yeah, I think it was a very unhelpful decision by the president to embrace a right-wing website in Britain that markets in Islamophobia, religious bigotry, and give it credibility. I will put my zeal to win the war up against anybody, including that of President Trump. I have been pretty forward-leaning in terms of fighting radical Islam. Fight him over there so we don't have to fight him here. Keep the troops we need over there to protect America. Open up Gitmo, don't close it. Change the rules of engagement. But the one thing I've learned after 42 trips to the region is that the antidote to terrorism is not racism and religious bigotry. When you embrace religious bigotry, when you say that all Muslims are the same, then you're undercutting our effort to win the war. All of our Muslim allies throughout the world have to be disappointed that President Trump chooses to embrace this website to the British Prime Minister, I understand your concerns. I think it was very inappropriate for the President of the United States to retweet these videos because they just breed hatred and contempt. The way to fight the war against radical Islam is to side with those in the faith who reject the radical elements of their own faith, not cast the entire faith under the same, with a broad brush. And I just cannot tell you how big a miscalculation this is. This is embracing people who are religious bigots. This lady is being charged with religious harassment inside of Britain. The parliament member who was killed by a right-wing crazy man, he referenced this site. The president is trying to inform us all that radical Islam is a threat. I understand that, Mr. President. You're right to want to take on radical Islam, but when you embrace sites like this, you're undercutting the war effort and you're putting our allies in Britain in a bad spot. So to the British Prime Minister, I understand your concern, and I think a lot of people in America don't want to go down the road the president's gone, and I hope he will not do this in the future.
Senator, you've had a lot of meetings. I mean, you've had an evolving relationship with this president from the campaign onward. But you've had a lot of meetings. You've played golf with him. You've had a lot of conversations, and many of them about foreign policy. Does he not understand, in your view, what you just said? Because the White House, defending him yesterday, said that basically that this is not a big deal. They downplayed the fact that he put these videos out.
Well, I respectfully disagree. The president wants to defeat radical Islam. He wants to take the gloves off. I support that. He wants to change the rules of engagement to go after terrorists more aggressively. He had a chance to declare this guy as an enemy combatant to gather intelligence. I hope he won't make that mistake again. I support the idea of going on the offensive, but after 42 trips to the region, the last thing you want to do is make this a war against Islam itself. I just met with the King of Jordan a couple of days ago. There's no better ally when it comes to winning the war on terror than King Abdullah. And what he's done by embracing this website, he's embracing people who traffic in religious bigotry. That's the antidote to terrorism is not racism and religious bigotry. The antidote to terrorism is going after the terrorist in cooperation with those in the faith who reject terrorism.
So many people agree with you. Can you then trust the president to project that abroad? Do you trust the president making these decisions then if this is what he's putting out?
I think the president's done a good job of changing the rules of engagement. I think we're going against ISIL in a strong way. I think he's got a good relationship with the Saudi royal family and leaders throughout the Mideast because he's been hard on Iran. Iran's the cancer of the Mideast. I think this was a miscalculation. I don't doubt what he was trying to do in his own mind was to make the problem of radical Islam more real. But embracing this radical website is not helping the cause, it's hurting the cause. And we have no better ally than our friends in Great Britain. This special relationship is just not a word we use or a term we use. It acts out over time. When we go to war, the Brits go to war. So when you put the British leaders in a bad position, you're not helping the cause.
So has that special relationship been damaged with 3 retweets?
I don't think it was helped. It is a strong relationship. The president respects our British allies. All I can say is that I support the president's decision to get tough on the war on terror. I do not support the idea of embracing religious bigotry as an antidote to terrorism, and that's what this website's all about. This website markets in hate and religious bigotry. I don't know if the videos are accurate or not. I can tell you this. The last thing we want to do as Americans is to put our British friends in a bad spot, declare war on the faith itself. We need to be building relationships in the Muslim world, Islamic world, not embracing religious bigotry.
There are also reports out in both the New York Times and the Washington Post, Senator, that the president is now denying in private that it was his voice on that Access Hollywood tape from the campaign, and also that he's now returning to questioning, once again, President Obama's birthplace. Has he ever talked to you about this?
No. The point I'm trying to make about the president is that I do enjoy his company. He did a masterful job in the conference yesterday selling this tax cut plan. He's going to do things on immigration that Bush and Obama could never do. He's a deal maker at heart. He sees the Iranians for the threat they really are. He is now changing the rules of the game on the military by building it up, not tearing it down. I have a lot in common with the president, but there are times that we disagree. The tactics we need to adopt in winning the war on terror does not include this website. So I will continue to work with the president. I will continue to play golf if he would like me to. I want to help him every way I can to defend this country, cut taxes, build up our infrastructure, and do something to replace Obamacare. At the end of the day, the only way I can be helpful to the president is to be honest. And honestly, Mr. President, embracing this website was a step backward, not forward.
This ultra-right nationalist group, political group in Great Britain. But separate from these retweets, the fact that there are these multiple reports coming out about what he is talking about in private again, about the Access Hollywood tape, and about the debunked conspiracy theory about where President Obama's birthplace. The fact that he's going back there right now, in the midst of everything you and I have discussed, does that concern you at this point?
You know, what concerns me about the American press is this endless attempt to label the guy as some kind of kook, not fit to be president. He did win, by the way. He beat me in 16 other. I know. Well, but I'll just be honest with you, Kate. Every time you turn on the TV, there are 3 cable networks. On one, he can do no wrong. On the other 2, he's a constant mess. And at the end of the day, he makes mistakes. And I hope I'm capable of saying, I don't agree with you here, but I agree with you there. So it's pretty frustrating for most Republicans, quite frankly, that this 24/7 attack on everything the president does or thinks gets a little old after a while.
Well, it's not, believe me, it's not, I would argue respectfully, Senator, it's not constant. But when these reports come out, and the White House is not denying them,
well, why don't you ask the president?
I would be happy to ask the president.
Okay, well,
when you're golfing with him next, tell him that Kate would love to have an interview with him. I would love to. But regardless, thank you for your time. Always appreciate it. Thank you, Senator.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right.